Mere Conservatism.
So, okay, finally, I don't know if it was 60 days or 100 days, Joe Biden holds a press conference.
60-something. It was in the 60s.
It was longer than anybody else. That much I'm sure of.
And he didn't even know he didn't even know he was going to be doing it.
No, I mean, well, let me go ahead and play this one soundbite right now. And by the way, that's David Perry, and I'm Cleve Walker, and this is indeed Mere Conservatism. And we literally waited for the production of our broadcast until after the press conference because we didn't want to miss it.
Yeah, and here's Joe checking his notes.
Well, you already jumped on one thing, big thing right there, but we'll get to that too. That's the weirdest thing. Here's one of the things he said that I thought maybe should cause concern.
I'm going to say something outrageous. I have never been particularly poor at calculating how to get things done in the United States Senate. So the best way to get something done, if it holds near and dear to you that you like to be able to, anyway, we're going to get a lot done. And if we have to, if there's complete lockdown and chaos as a consequence of the filibuster, then we'll have to go beyond what I'm talking about.
David,
what are you talking about?
That was not a gaffe. Okay,
yeah,
that's the difference between a gaffe, which he has done in years past, and what happened there. Yeah. What do you think happened there?
Look,
be honest.
He kind of loses his train of thought. I mean,
he lost the entire train and the tracks.
No. I mean, he knew the gist of what he was trying to say, which is that he's going to get some stuff done. Okay, he ended up saying that. A lot of people, they say a lot of things as they get there, and he was going to say some stuff as he got there. It was outrageous, by the way, to say that he knows how to get stuff done in the Senate. It's funny to me, the things that he says, but he didn't totally lose it, but he just kind of like didn't really know where he was going.
He totally lost it. He stopped right in the middle of the whole thing and said, Well, we're just going to get things done. Okay, he lost it.
Yeah,
and even though he had the cheat sheets, which you mentioned earlier, and all that written down, because he had questions that he knew was going to be asked.
Yeah,
he even had the names of reporters that he knew that he was going to call on. So he had all this going for him, and he still does something like this.
Well, it's very different than Trump, right?
Oh my goodness!
It's actually, frankly, it's the same in a lot of ways as well.
Also,
the way that it's the same is that after the press conference, there's a lot of things that were said, and you're like, "What? What did he say?"
But for a different reason.
For a very different reason. Okay. It's like the opposite.
It wasn't that Trump lost his thought; it's that he actually gave his thoughts.
Yeah, and you're like, "That's what's in your head." Joe Biden is also showing us what's in his head. Just blank spaces.
See, you're taking it.
It's just like big blank spots.
He literally, I mean, they had to, I don't know what kind of medicine he's on, but they had to make sure proper dosage to make sure he got the proper rest.
Yeah.
They held it at early in the afternoon and not in the late evening. All the stuff to try to keep him on.
It wasn't past his bedtime, which is good. Look, also, Trump was totally off the cuff.
Yeah.
That was actually kind of maybe it was a good thing sometimes. It was good in certain settings. In these press conferences, though, it wasn't always good for him to be off the cuff.
I think for him it was good.
It's just who he is.
Yeah, he's not going to sit there and read these cliff notes. Okay,
Joe Biden couldn't do that. Even when Trump read something, you could tell it was like he'd go, "Definitely, it really was." He'd like add his own little flair to it.
I'm going to say this to me, and we're going to touch on some of the other subjects that were covered. But to me, it presented two big things, this press conference. Number one, the media is still the state media. They're all about protecting this guy, David.
That was a big takeaway for me. I mean, I noticed how gentle everybody treated him. It was a very, very gentle, soft, like
you're talking to your grandpa.
Look. Have you ever had a massage, Cleve? I know you're real big into
I've seen
spa
it,
stuff. Yeah. So you go in there and the lights are dim and they're playing soft music, scented candles. You kind of lay face down on the nice, comfy, warm. They heat the sheets for you, and then they kind of oil and it feels really good. And that was kind of the vibe For the press conference, they were giving Joe a massage.
Well,
it was all just kind of nice and soft and gentle.
In some ways, it was worse than that, okay, because there was one, I forget her name, it was a black reporter there, and she asked a question about why they were coming, the immigrants were coming across the border in such numbers. He said, it's a perception, she said, that you're, a moral and a nice person, and perhaps that might be something. I mean, have you ever heard a news reporter begin a question like that?
Yeah, there were news reporters that were bashing the previous administration, right, talking about how much better Joe Biden was than him, and they were blatantly. It was obvious that they were biased towards Joe Biden. So that's one of the main things I noticed. I don't think that Joe was terrible. It just, there's nothing, when you would watch a Trump press conference, it was actually entertaining.
Yes. Oh, definitely. I mean, whichever side of the aisle you're on, it was not a boring conference.
This one was boring, and there also wasn't really that much there. I mean, it wasn't interesting. There wasn't that much information there.
Even when they asked him point blank, the gal said, so when are we going to be allowed to go into the camps and do the video? He gave the most obtuse answer, and they accepted it. He said, well, as soon as we get everything like it's supposed to be, as soon as we get the thing going like we're going to, that'll be. When is that going to be? That'll be in, due time. Would they have accepted such an answer from Donald J. Trump?
They did the same thing about withdrawing from Afghanistan. Same thing.
Oh, that killed me. I mean, seriously.
He was like, oh, yeah, it'll happen.
It'll happen.
I don't know when. It's kind of hard. It's hard strategically to do it. Next year, this time next year, probably.
So that was a big takeaway. The state media is in the tank for this president, as we knew they would be, as they were for President Obama.
And I'm not sure if we mentioned this yet, but I don't think Peter Doocy got a question.
Not a single
Fox
question.
News. I watched probably all but about 10 minutes of the press conference, so he might have been in that gap, but I don't think that he got a question. So
Fox was not represented. Mm-hmm. I mean, they were there. Doocy was there, but and that tells you something right there. The one person he's not going to call on is the one media outlet that may actually ask him something other than a softball question. And so, I'm sorry. This to me. And again, this coupled with the image of him climbing up the steps of Air Force One, this is what the Democrats have done to us. Put this guy up as the leader of supposedly the leader of the free world, and I'm embarrassed. And I know the nations and leaders around the world were watching this, and it further reiterates to them, particularly China and Putin. We got this.
It clearly doesn't seem like we're in a position of strength. That we don't have a strong leader.
You put it nicely. You put it so nicely. I'm serious.
I mean, again, look, I'm not totally against having an unassuming president. I'm not somebody who loved Donald Trump's personality or necessarily want a president who is outgoing and
you do want a
crazy
sane and cogent president, though.
Yes, I do, and so I'm not saying that our president has to be like Donald Trump, but I am. But what would be nice is if we had somebody who is a confident person, who was somebody who you could look at and you could tell they knew, they had a grasp of what was going on and what they were thinking and their ideas and how to execute those things. And I'm not confident, although, let me say something outrageous, Cleve. I don't know that Joe can actually execute politics anymore.
No, he can't. I mean, and that's obvious. Wherever he was in years past, this guy is past that. And to me, again, the president and the vice president of this country is Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. I don't care about Kamala even being there. Those are the ones who are giving the marching orders. They're going to get whatever they want. They tell Joe what to do. They're trying to get him through maybe this first year before they make the transition, getting him out of there.
Joe said that he expected to run again.
Yeah, I heard that. But he had to say that. I mean, seriously.
He goes, I'm a believer in fate, man. I don't know what's going to happen in 4 years.
The reason he had to say that, number one, if he doesn't say that, he immediately becomes a lame duck president.
Yes.
Okay, so they're not going to line up. But there's no way that this guy is going to.
I can't foresee it. I really can't foresee him running for president again.
Neither can he. All right, but he has to say that in answer to that question. Okay, that's as simple as that.
Oh, man.
Well,
It doesn't inspire confidence, and I do think that there are a lot of other world leaders, especially of China and Russia, who are looking at this and saying, we have a chance here.
Oh, yes. And they're going to be, China and Russia are going to be much more in a hurry to do things over the next 2 years, even than the Democrats and progressives are. Because they've got a window now, especially China, who wants to be the lone world superpower. Mm-hmm. This is their time, because I don't care what anybody says, Trump had China back on their heels, and that's just a fact. And so now they got a chance. They get another chance. Speaking of Trump, he was on Fox News' the Ingram angle. I get her name messed up all the time. And he was asked what he thinks about the administration's response to the border. And here's what President Trump said.
What you're seeing now is inhumane. These children and people are a tremendous number of children, by the way, but they're living on top of each other in squalor. This is squalor. That's why they won't allow the press to come in. We let the press go in, and we had much smaller numbers, frankly, because people couldn't come up.
He brings it up, a good point. Again, the way they're covering the conditions that these kids and folks are in and the way they covered it under Trump, it's like night and day.
Yeah.
And actually, it's worse now than it was then.
The policy shift has made a really big difference.
Yeah.
And maybe the personality of the president makes a big difference.
How about all the T-shirts worn by some of the immigrants, with Biden's name on it?
Joe's a nice guy. And Joe at the press conference, he's like, is that supposed to be an insult to me? I mean, I think that's nice that people think that I'm a nice guy. Here's the thing. Cleve, I don't need my president to be my buddy. I don't need them.
Thank you.
To be a nice guy. I mean, I'm not against having a nice guy, but if my choice is I have a nice guy president and the border is overwhelmed and out of control and people are getting in and not even being processed, not even giving dates to reappear.
It's outrageous.
Children and people of all ages are in squalor, like President Trump said. If I have that, or I have a president who is abrasive and not that nice, but I don't have a problem on the border, I'm going with the
I'll go with the
not
abrasive
nice guy. So because here's the thing.
Yeah.
They frame this in a way that makes you think that Joe Biden cares about the humanitarian issue at the border. But now Joe Biden is president, and we have a humanitarian issue at the border that we didn't have under President Trump.
For sure.
So because they care so much more about what they say or what they think about him being nice than what he actually does and the results. This is a liberal thing. Results matter very little.
Intention is all that matters.
And one thing that we saw under President Trump is great results.
The border issue it had been solved.
In almost every area, we saw great results. Terrible rhetoric. Just bad politically and sometimes morally and all that stuff. Bad rhetoric. Great results. And so what do you want? You want somebody to get the job done, or do you want somebody to prick your ears?
They want somebody who empathizes with you. And you just pointed out something, though. He's not empathizing with it. The suffering of these people is just as bad or worse than what they're talking about happened before. So their empathy is fake. It's crocodile tears. That's what the progressive have.
Which is why this stuff doesn't work. It's like this. I don't like comparing government and politics to parenting, but
they do.
But they do, and I don't like doing that. But I think you'll understand my point when I say, I can't always be nice to my kids.
No good parent.
I'm kind to them, but sometimes kindness and doing the right thing for your kids is getting in their face, telling them what they're doing wrong, punishing them, disciplining, those kinds of things. Because it's not nice to let somebody make mistakes over and over again.
That's a very good example.
And to act like it's fine, and it's not nice to let somebody get in trouble. When I yell at my daughter because she's having a dance party at the top of the stairs, she's 2 years old and she's getting jiggy with it at the top of the stairs, and I yell at her to stop. Yeah. I'm actually not being mean. I might sound kind of mean, but I don't want her to fall down the stairs.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
No, you're saying what every good parent knows. The Democrats and progressives are indulgent parents, okay, and also helicopter parents that hover over every aspect of their kid's life. You're talking like the parent who recognizes that you are their dad, not their buddy, and therefore there are times when you're going to have to do things and say things that they don't like.
Yeah.
And act in a way that they don't like. So, yeah, that's a great example because, again, the progressives were all about being empathy and we're, just loving you guys. And yet, I think you've shown the difference.
And let me just mention, because since I hate the parent analogy when it comes to politics, the government is not my daddy.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm not saying that, but I think you get my point
Yeah.
that sometimes being tough and is actually more effective and actually kinder than being hands off and just letting people do whatever because it can actually hurt them in the long run.
It's just that if they're going to use the parenting type angle, which they do, you're showing them where they're hypocritical and wrong, even using that particular angle, which we both disagree with. Good news and bad news. The bad news, H.R. 1, they're trying to pass that, and I'm one of those people who do not believe Joe Manchin, and I believe the filibuster is gone, in my opinion. So that's the bad news. H.R. 1, the federal government is going to try to take over state election laws, and it's going to end up going to the Supreme Court. The good news is several states, including your home state of Georgia, are trying to do laws to clean up their act and to take some type of action to restore integrity. Now, one of those, I'm talking about, of course, Brian Kemp. He has just recently signed a law that basically, says we're going to try to restore election integrity back to Georgia elections. But when he made that announcement, the Democrats went crazy. Yeah. One Georgia state representative had to be led out of the Capitol in handcuffs as she and a handful of others protested the signing of Georgia's new election law by Republican Governor Brian Kemp. Georgia Democratic State Representative Erica Thomas actually objected to that happening.
You think this is going to go over well? Please. And then you're going to tell me I'll be next? I'll be next for doing what? For standing for the voters of Georgia?
See, this is how they are. They try to shout you down. This is a procedure that's going on here that it needs to be respected. They're always talking about respecting the Congress or the state legislatures. These people are just trying to disrupt this whole thing. What say you about this?
Well, I got texted about this law. I got some people texting me about it, some political operatives and stuff like that. I told them I support the law. Mm-hmm. I think that's a good idea. I do think that it's a good idea to limit absentee voting.
Oh, yes.
And the restrictions that they're putting on that, I think it's a good idea. Frankly, I think it's a good idea to lessen early voting like they're doing. Mm-hmm. I don't know about shortening the hours during the day to vote, but if that's early voting, then yes, I think a lot of these things are actually good.
So why do you think then, you're saying they're good, why do you think that the Democrats are so exercised and worked up about it?
Well, I think there's a couple of different reasons for Democrats. Number one, their idea is that they want this is the best possible read for the Democrat position. Okay, let me be generous. To them.
You usually are.
They want everybody to vote. They want everybody to be able to have the chance to vote. And so because there are things that keep people from voting, schedules, things like that. Health conditions, whatnot. They want to make it easy for those people. So if you work shift work or whatever, it's the early voting, the late voting hours, lots and lots of places where you can go vote so that the lines are shorter. They want to make it super easy, super fast, express lane voting.
Okay.
Just because they want everybody to be able to participate. And that's what I think for a lot of people, I think that's the issue. The downside of this is that it does open up, and this is the other position, this is the other side, it does open up more opportunities for people with nefarious motives to take advantage of the ease of voting to rig the system.
Okay.
Especially with ballot harvesting, the absentee ballots, and
that's awful,
and those kinds of things. So I actually think I think that it's okay for it to require some effort to vote.
Wouldn't you think that
And
would
I
be
certainly
important?
yes. And
Photo
I-
ID, it's required for so many other things besides voting, and they don't have any problem with that
And
when it comes to voting.
I certainly think that it's a good idea to have some rules when it comes to absentee voting, because that can be very easily abused.
It has been.
Look, you want to vote, I want you to vote. There's a schedule. You can see when you can vote and where you can vote, and you make arrangements to make sure you can be there. And let's do it. Let's actually make an effort to go do it.
David, you are generous because I would agree with you on the first point. They want everybody to vote, but I believe the total message is they want everybody to vote, including those who should not be able to vote.
Well,
that's a problem I have.
So what you're saying is that, so people that maybe are not eligible to vote, like illegal immigrants,
for one thing,
makes it a little easier for them to find a way to vote.
So that's my issue. They want to be able to have a scenario that not only allows everybody who has a legal vote to vote, but also enables illegal people who should not have a right to vote as well, literally stealing the vote of the law-abiding voter. So,
and by the way, if you asked a lot of Democrats, especially elected ones, if illegal immigrants should have a vote, they would probably say yes. A lot of them probably would.
They're very
say
honest
yes.
about it.
And many of them would say the same thing about felons and stuff like that. So what you're saying is it's not out there. It's not some ulterior motive that you're reading into what they're saying.
Not
a lot of them do. A lot of them do think that. Now, They just want people to be able to have a voice in the government and stuff like that. That's the generous read. But what you're saying, I think, is also true in many cases. I support the law. I think it's a good idea to tighten some of that stuff up. It's way too loose in a lot of states, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I am totally okay with there being effort required to vote in Georgia.
Another issue near and dear to both of us, I think maybe to you even more than me in one sense, is gun control. It's up and really big now because of the shootings and whatnot.
Well, because gun control is a big conversation because they couldn't do the white supremacy thing for the Boulder shooter.
Yes,
so
they were so disappointed to find out that he
once
wasn't
they
a white
realized
guy.
the guy's name was Abed, and they weren't going to be able to do the white supremacy thing, they pivoted to gun control because in the Atlanta shooting it was mostly white supremacy. You didn't hear that much about the gun. You heard mostly about white supremacy and Stop Asian Hate.
They got to connect the two, by the way. Gun control is to be connected.
Yeah, so they couldn't do that as much with this other one, so they pivoted to gun control. Yes, and when I hear Democrat politicians talk about guns and gun control, it reminds me, it reinforces the fact that these people are way too stupid to have control over my life.
Right.
They don't know what they're talking about when it comes to
particularly guns.
They have no idea what they're talking about when it comes to guns.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you this. Did you know that Georgia state law already enshrines the idea of a civilian militia? It's in the law. I only heard this recently myself. Had you heard?
I didn't. I'm not aware of this.
Well, they had a lawmaker on. I forget his name. It was on the Glenn Beck show, and he was explaining it. It's already there, and that would be the law that they would use to fight against any attempt by the federal government, especially if Biden does what he has threatened to do it by some type of executive order. That they're going to be fighting it on that level, and I hear other states are also doing things to shore up their gun laws as well, to give more authority and freedom to the gun owners.
The gun control thing is very frustrating because, first of all, it's an infringement on rights. Deep down, we know, and everybody knows that every gun law is unconstitutional. Okay, that's my extreme pro-Second Amendment position there. Okay, there's way too many gun laws already, but what will happen inevitably is that something like this will happen. The Democrats will seize on the opportunity to talk about gun control, and they'll talk about a whole bunch of gun control measures that would have had no effect whatsoever on
any of the things that happened
on the shooting that they are saying inspired.
Wouldn't have stopped it at all.
They're like, this has got to stop. This has got to stop. So let's do all this stuff that has no relevance at all to what actually happened, because this has got to stop. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't connect. Even if the gun control laws were not infringing and were not violative of our rights, they would be ineffective What's
they
the
don't
point?
work. You're right. They would not work. Good point.
An assault weapons ban.
Oh my goodness.
So here's the thing: these long guns, and long guns represents a lot of different types of guns, not just AR-15s. I don't know if you know this, but rifles of any kind, and I think it actually counts shotguns too in this. Long guns account for something like 230 killings in a given year, compared to the thousands and thousands of gun homicides. Most gun deaths are due to handguns, the vast majority of them. So they want to talk about banning rifles that are really not a factor.
Yeah. And you're much more knowledgeable on this issue than I am, and that's why I wanted to really touch base with you on what they're trying to do. But for me, the Second Amendment is just a reminder that ultimately, as an American citizen, as a free American citizen, I am ultimately the one responsible for my safety and the safety of my family. Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm happy for the police and the sheriffs. I love that. But ultimately, somebody has to say, that's my fundamental responsibility.
Right.
And you taking that away from me is anathema to the freedom of any American citizen.
And frankly, Cleve, that is not even the Second Amendment. Your right to self-defense is a God-given right.
Like all our rights should be.
This is an inherent right you have to protect your person and your property. Okay, the Second Amendment is there to tell the government you're not allowed to infringe on that. So there's a right you already have. All the Second Amendment does is tell the government you can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
What does the government do at every turn? All these gun laws infringe on that.
Definitely.
They make it harder for you to do what you need to do, your God-given right to protect yourself, and you happen to be able to do it with a gun. Okay?
The government is jealous of God. The government says, no, we give the rights, not God. And again, that's why mere conservatism for us is a matter not just of laws, but also of our faith and our values as a result of our faith.
People need to understand our country is founded on the idea, this is a philosophy that you have certain inalienable rights. I've heard that somewhere. That God has given you as a created being. You have these rights. Governments are instituted among men to protect these rights. They don't give you rights. They protect the rights that you already have.
Well put. I like it. David, where can they hear this entire broadcast again?
Check it out on Apple Podcasts, also on Facebook and YouTube.
And join us again just a few more days. We'll have another edition of Mere Conservatism ready for you, discussing our God-given rights and the fact that the government does not have a right to take them from us. Have a fantastic day.